Contrary to popular belief, you do not need to cook ribs low and slow for them to be super delicious. You don't even need an outdoor smoker. You could do it right in the oven. This is my Asian sticky ribs recipe. Little sweet, little heat, super savory, and very, very juicy ribs. And the best part about this recipe is it doesn't take 3 hours. You can get these ribs done from start to finish in 90 minutes. Let's get into the recipe video. If you want the full ingredient list, check the description box below. Let's get cooking. We're going to start this recipe off with some pork baby back ribs, and these are just right out of the supermarket, so I've already taken them out of the package and dried them off with some paper towel. Now let's get that membrane off on the bottom. You just got to get underneath it and then pull it off. Sometimes it comes off really easy. This one was a little pain in the butt, so I had to take it off in sections. And the purpose of this is just making sure that the flavors can penetrate into the meat. Now with a sharp knife, we're going to clean these ribs up, so any little bits that are hanging off, so any meat, any of that fat, any of the connective tissue that's just hanging off, we got to get rid of that because it's just going to burn. We're going to put a char on the outside of these, so we don't want any extra burnt bits on the outside. So anything that looks like it's loose and it's not part of the ribs, you're going to want to trim off. We'll do a 3 to 4 bone cut, and so this is going to allow us to portion these ribs. It's also going to allow us to flip the ribs over without having to flip the whole rack, which is a little pain sometimes. So we're going to get out that same sharp knife. We're going to cut these into 3 and 4 bone sections, so we're going to get 4 portions out of this one rack of ribs. Now, in a hotel pan, we're going to season these ribs, so we're going to use some olive oil as a binder, and we're going to give it a nice drizzle all over the top. Then we're going to come in with some soy sauce, just a sprinkle. And now some rice wine vinegar for some acidity. And now let's start seasoning. First, we're going to go in with some of my base seasoning. This is a blend of garlic powder, onion powder, salt, and pepper. If it's not your first time here, you know where to find the link. If it is your first time here, there's a link to the video recipe in the description. Now we're going to throw in some Chinese 5-spice powder. So this is a mixture of 5 spices that really adds a really nice flavor. It's potent stuff, so you only need a little bit. And now we're going to use some smoked paprika. It's going to give us a nice red color. Also, we're not doing this in the smoker, so it's going to give us a nice smoky flavor. I've never done this before, but we're going to throw some baking powder in there. I want to see if the baking powder can help put a crust on the outside and help bind with the spices and the oil. Because the idea behind these ribs is that you're going to cook them in the oven and you're going to create a spice crust on the outside, and then we're going to take that glaze, and the glaze is going to bind with the spice crust. So now we're going to keep mixing it until we get like a nice pasty consistency around all of the ribs. So now once these are nicely coated, we're going to put them on a baking sheet lined with aluminum foil and parchment paper. This is my go-to setup on a weeknight, or actually every single night, to make sure that I don't have to scrub these baking trays. So these are going to go inside a 375-degree oven with the convection setting on, and we're going to put them on there for anywhere between like 30 to 45 minutes till we get a nice crust on the outside. So while those are going in the oven, let's make our glaze. We're going to start off with this teriyaki marinade sauce, whatever you want to call it. And now we're going to add some rice wine vinegar to that. This ingredient really makes the flavor on this. This is some plum sauce. So it's going to add a little bit of sweetness and a really nice distinct flavor that matches nicely with the Chinese 5-spice powder that we put on the seasoning. Now we're going to add a little maple syrup for a little depth of flavor. It's also going to add additional sweetness. Because remember, the flavor profile for these ribs is sweet and spicy. And now we're going to put in some sweet chili sauce. This is both sweet and spicy. And now some sesame oil. Sesame oil really rounds out the flavor of this glaze. Now we're going to put in some garlic chili paste. I've been finding that I've been putting this stuff in everything because I love garlic and I love this spicy flavor. It's very similar to sriracha. Really delicious. So now we're going to give this a mix and we're going to set this aside while we attend to our ribs. So those have been in the oven. You can see that we got like nice browning on the outside. We're going to give these a flip and then we're going to lower the temperature in the oven. We're going to get that temperature down to the lower 300. So you can go 300, 325. All ovens are different. And we're going to put them in there for about 45 to 50 minutes, now with the meat side down. So once these are done, you can see they got nice browning on the tips. We're going to flip them back over and we're going to hit them with the glaze. So if anything looks a little burnt, this is the style of ribs that we're going for. We want that char on the outside, and now we're going to soften up that char with this glaze. So we're going to get out our silicone brush, and we're going to nice and liberally give these the glaze treatment. And I'm making sure that I get all of those little brown bits and cover these with glaze. They only need to go in the oven for about 5 to 10 minutes at a slightly higher temperature, just so that glaze sets a little bit. So we're going to throw these in there real quick, and while we're doing that, let's get our garnishes ready. So we're going to slice up these scallion greens nice and fine. And we're going to set these aside. Now here's a really awesome ingredient. So these are pickled Calabrian chili peppers. So these are pickled chili peppers, so they're hot and they have that pickled vinegary flavor. It is really, really awesome ingredient that I like to use. I don't use these too much because my digestive system doesn't handle spicy food too much, but this is the perfect recipe for them. So we're just going to have to pull the stems off, and we're just going to give them a fine chop all the way through. If you like spicy stuff, I highly suggest to try this. It's a really awesome ingredient to put on food. So you can see our glaze is set a little bit, and now we're going to take these, we're going to put them on our serving plate. And now let's bring this home by garnishing them with some black and white sesame seeds. I don't know why, but I can't find the black and white sesame seeds at the supermarket anymore, so I have to buy both white and black ones and do it a little separately. That's fine. I probably should just mix them myself by now. Some of those scallion greens on top. And now the pickled chili peppers. And look at the colors on the outside of here. So we got different colors, different textures. These ribs look absolutely unbelievable. And I got nothing against low and slow ribs, but if you come home on a Tuesday and you want ribs, this is the recipe to go to.
These ribs look unbelievable. I really, really want to try that. Let's see how we did. This is probably our best three. And you can see I did a 3 and 4 bone cut. 3 and 4 bone cuts, really good for getting a good crisp on the outside, and at the same time saving you some time, and also getting some bones on the inside that are going to be really, really tender as compared to the crispy ones. So a lot of different textures. And we're just going to tip these up, run that knife right all the way down through. Now look at how delicious this rib looks. I mean, let's see if this can get this on camera, but like the juiciness of this rib, super duper crust on the outside, really nice and juicy. Don't forget about our garnishes. Our garnishes are not just to make things pretty, they actually taste great. So here we go. A little sweet, a little spicy, nice and super duper tender. You can see the way that pulled off the bone. And this is how a rib should eat. A rib should not be falling off the bone, but you should be able to pull them with your teeth, really nice and tender, and come right off. The best bits of this rib are those crispy bits on the outside. You can see the way that cleaned right off the bone. Super duper delicious. Really nice, and a really nice contrast to barbecue ribs in the oven. Well, I'm gonna eat more of these ribs. If you wanna see another rib recipe, that's an alternative rib recipe and not barbecue ribs, check out my pastrami rib recipe, and I'll see you over there. Thanks.